is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. It is a Tuesday. Glad to be here. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you. IHOP hotline always open, 869-1240. Jad Chambers has that covered for us. Taking your calls, all kinds of good stuff coming for you today. We got some giveaways, movie fans. You don't want to miss that. Very busy and active day of Chiefs news to get through. The NBA playoffs we advance. And a lot to talk about with that as well. And we've got a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction coming up at the top of the next hour. Glad to be here with you on a Tuesday, everybody, both over the air here on KFH and, of course, on our video stream, which is rocking and rolling. Tommy and I in here. Jad's back in the studio. You can watch us if you'd like. We're on the KFH Facebook page, KFH YouTube page, and Sports Daily Twitter pages. Glad to be here, Tommy. How are you this morning?
Busy day today, going through the rundown of everything we've got coming up, and it's going to be a jam-packed show, so looking forward to jumping right into it.
Let's start with the Chiefs. We'll get to the NBA playoffs in just a little bit because it was a very important night there. We had Lakers taking a commanding lead. You had the Heat establishing their place in that series as well, but we'll get to that. But, man, it was a lot of interesting storylines coming out of the Chiefs. And let's start with offense. So sort of three things happening here. And you heard one of them right before we came on here on that NFL update. Isaiah Pacheco has had surgery, which I think is very interesting. We had a situation where maybe there's a chance Frank Clark could come back. Chris Jones certainly seems to be advocating for that. And then to me, the most interesting thing that happened yesterday was Andy Reid talked about the offensive line, and Donovan Smith and not Jawan Taylor is going to start at left tackle in the OTAs, Tommy, which surprised literally everybody, right? They added Jawan Taylor and they signed him to a big old free agent deal. And the thought was, all right, there's your replacement for Orlando Brown. But then we get the news from Andy Reid yesterday that Donovan Smith, who was added sort of late in the offseason, is actually going to do that. Reid's explanation is simply that Donovan Smith has been a left tackle. Jawan Taylor has been a right tackle. Smith, before an injury, was a really good left tackle. The Chiefs know him well because they've played against him, and they think he'd do well there. That sounds great. But boy, if that's the case, they paid a whole lot of money for a right tackle, Tommy. This is interesting, and I don't mind it, honestly. I don't mind that they're going to go with Smith and Taylor there, but it is interesting, and I don't think they've seen something out of Jawan Taylor because there's been no chance to see him play. But I can't tell. I mean, I think this really is a tip of the cap. They must be really pleased that they were able to get Donovan Smith.
I guess so. Or also they're really, really trying to cover their bases a little bit, right? I mean, they spent all that money on Jawan Taylor. And of course, the entire world reacted under the assumption that he was going to be the starting left tackle. And I think that, I remember at the time having the discussion about, they're paying him a lot of money to play a position that he's never played before. We liked his athleticism. We liked his skill set and all of that. But at least I wasn't totally sure that he would be able to play left tackle at a high level right away. I thought eventually he might be able to do that, but I was a little bit concerned about what that development might look like in such a really important position in protecting the blind side of Patrick Mahomes, and they shelled out all this money. You know what? I also wonder, a part of me thinks that the Chiefs were really wanting to target an offensive lineman, specifically a left tackle, in the first round of the draft, and they weren't able to get that done. And because remember, the Donovan Smith signing didn't happen until after the draft was done. So it makes me wonder, were they trying to go left tackle right away? I don't know if they would have started a rookie in that position or if they would have felt more comfortable with Jawan Taylor at left tackle and then the rookie on the right side first and developing them that way. But ultimately that didn't happen. They had to go sign Donovan Smith. And now we see Smith on the left side and Jawan Taylor more than likely on the right.
Well, look, I think all of it can be true. I think what none of us did was understand how excited the Chiefs were about getting Donovan Smith. I mean, clearly, right? He's only 29, for offensive linemen, if he's able to, regain his, I guess, injury ability. I mean, you could look at that as a long-term deal. It's not the worst.
By the way, did you know Donovan Smith led the league in holding penalties last year?
That doesn't always. Oh, last year that doesn't always. I don't like it. Let me say that. But those great Cowboys offensive lines of yesteryear, right? Not the recent great offensive line, but when you go way back to their Super Bowl, is it Eric Williams? I think was his name. That dude had a penalty on every other play, but man, nobody touched Aikman until the end of the career, right? So I'm all right with that. That I think is okay. And if he's injured, that probably explains some of that too. Look, the Chiefs evaluate offensive linemen well. If they think Donovan Smith can come back in and be healthy at 29, they're really going to like that. And Jawan Taylor becomes a backup plan. It also just allows them to ease Jawan Taylor in, right? It takes the pressure off. Maybe the actual plan is for Jawan Taylor to be the left tackle. Maybe that is the plan. And they just haven't seen it yet. So they're going to start this way. Who knows? I hope, though, that gives them two options. But yeah, I don't think any of us properly understood at the time that they signed him what the Chiefs thought of Donovan Smith, because it was like, oh, that's a nice addition, right? Good depth, a guy that's been really good in his career, right? I think they hope for more than that. And if they're right about that, it's not the worst thing in the world to have two bookends. And it's also not the worst thing in the world to have some perceived depth there, right? If somebody gets hurt that you're not down a left tackle, you could slide things around and be okay. So I'm okay. I'm not saying like they made a huge mistake with Jawan Taylor by any means. It's just really interesting because the kind of money they paid Jawan Taylor is left tackle money.
Right. And I'm not ready to say that they made a huge mistake, but I do think that if we see Jawan Taylor never play at left tackle, they spent a ton of money for a right tackle when they could have gotten someone, I would say, at the caliber somewhere around Jawan Taylor at a lot lower price point. So yes. I think the ultimate goal, you have to think that if Jawan Taylor doesn't eventually or at some point play left tackle, then at that point, I do think it becomes a mistake for Kansas City.
I also think it's hard to criticize the Chiefs, right, for making a move and then something potentially or seemingly falling in their lap, right? Like it's not the wrong decision to get a guy you like in Jawan Taylor because another guy you like just happens to be there on a very affordable deal. That doesn't mean you don't do the Donovan Smith deal if it's available to you. And I bring this up because it sort of lends itself and blends into the second topic, which I've really been thinking a lot about since you sent it to me last night. And that is a potential return of Frank Clark. So, and we're not done with offensive line, but this does transition, right? It wasn't the wrong decision to let go of Frank Clark, the wrong decision to go beef up the defensive line through the draft, but then Frank Clark to potentially come back. It doesn't make any of those other things bad. And Chris Jones basically just tweeted something that sort of alluded to the fact that, maybe he could. And those guys are tight. So I assume that, there's probably interest if Chris Jones is out there saying that publicly. Frank Jones's return. Frank Clark's return. I mean, if you can get him back for little to nothing, I'm good with it. And defensive line depth, you can never have enough of it. I don't want him being back, though, to limit the development of the young players. And I don't think that it would. And at the end of the day, defensive line depth is never going to be a bad thing. So yeah, if I suppose if he could come back and it was, like league minimum type deal, or the Chiefs have a little extra money that they didn't need to spend on like a 1-year deal, yeah, I'd be all right with it. I'd be all right with it because, for all the things off the field that Frank Clark has put them through on the field, seemingly great teammate, great, addition. He blends well with that group. And we at least know in the postseason, he's got, playoff Frank mode still very much exists. So yeah, I think that I could get on board with it. But if they do it, it doesn't mean that they made the wrong decision or the wrong evaluation to let him go in the first place and then go draft a defensive lineman. And that's, like at the end, like if they had, the perfect scenario, Tommy, do they have Donovan Smith be the replacement for Orlando Brown and know that they can get Frank Clark on a cheap deal and maybe draft a wide receiver? Like, I don't know, but I think I think that's a little foolish to try and go back down those paths.
One thing to keep in mind too, the news came out yesterday that Felix Anudike-Uzomah I think he had a small surgery on his thumb, didn't he? And so he might miss a little bit of time here in the offseason. So I understand if you want to try to beef up the insurance a little bit on the defensive line, if you're unsure the recovery time of your first round pick. So I'm okay with that. I am with you where I feel like if you can get Frank Clark on a discount to return to Kansas City, then it makes all the sense in the world. He's familiar with the city, familiar with the organization. Most importantly, he's familiar with Steve Spagnuolo and the defensive set. So I'm okay with that. I mean, I would rather them go and bring back Frank Clark at the vet minimum rather than going out and trying to sign a free agent who is not familiar with the way the Chiefs run their defense. And then there's a learning curve and all of that. So if you want to have a little bit of a stopgap, if you're, thinking, okay, well, Anudike-Uzomah may be injured for a little bit and the recovery time may take a little bit, and then he's going to have to get accustomed to playing in the NFL. You've got George Karlaftis, who is still developing and all of that also. I'm okay with Frank Clark being a stopgap, bringing him back on a 1-year deal at a really low price point. I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. On top of it, if it's going to make Chris Jones happy and you can get it done, by all means, get it done.
Well, Chris Jones, what needs to happen? I mean, Chris Jones's contract is what will make Chris Jones happy. And all the things that have needed to happen have been playing out. I think there's one more defensive tackle that likely will need to get signed before Chris Jones then resets the market. And it sounds like, if you read people who are really smart with the cap and understand this stuff, that's probably what's happening. There was the Giants defensive tackle got his deal there, and I can't remember who this last player is. There's one more defensive tackle I think people are looking at to get that deal, and then everything will turn to Chris Jones so that he can reset the market, which is what needs to happen or whatever. All that stuff gets a little in the weeds, but I think Chris Jones is fine. Frank Clark, if he helps Felix Anudike-Uzomah take some of the pressure off, because we all know, like, we both love that pick. We both love that player, but he does have a curve to learn maybe that some others don't. He just is like a raw, freaky player that was really good in college. And so if Frank Clark buys that time too, I'm not super concerned about a thumb injury for a defensive lineman, by the way. Guys play in casts all the time at that position, right? It's the club, which can't do that anymore. I just like visualize that and all of the different players we've seen play in casts on the defensive line over the years and be really good still. Like I think they're fine. The injury that does have me concerned, Tommy, is Isaiah Pacheco. Off-season surgery on the labrum and a broken hand. It's probably okay. Here's my concern. Pacheco is going to be an injured player. The way that he runs and his style, he is going to deal with injuries. I'm beginning to be a little concerned to moderately concerned about the Chiefs backfield. I think that there are plug and play guys, and I think that they'll be okay. It's not like this is going to change my opinion on the Super Bowl. At the end of the day, I really do think being able to run the ball for the Chiefs is a really important aspect of their game. And I'm fine with Pacheco doing that, being that late game bruiser, but he gets bruised, right? Running backs do. And running backs, especially that run with his style, don't stay healthy in this league. We know Jerick McKinnon has an injury history. And then you're back to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who can't really do what they need him to do. I mean, he's okay, right? But If it's 3rd and 1 in the fourth quarter and you're trying to keep the opposing offense off the field and you're playing Joe Burrow or Josh Allen, are we comfortable with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that spot? Because I'm not.
Yeah, probably not. Although I'm not overly concerned about Pacheco's injury. I mean, he played through the injuries in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so, it shows he's a tough guy, right? He's playing through those injuries in the biggest game of the season for Kansas City. So, the surgery happened early in the offseason. I think he'll have plenty of time clearly to recover. And then if they've got a plug and play, I would argue that the running back position in the NFL may be, it's probably might even be the most replaceable position as far as a plug and play person. Like Pacheco was a 7th round draft pick. Think of all the undrafted free agents that have come in and been effective throughout, the league over the last 10, 15 plus years. I think you can plug and play somebody if you need to for a short period of time. Plus, keep in mind, they re-signed Jerick McKinnon, who I thought was a revelation last season.
Well, he was.
I'm glad they brought him back. I think that he's got gas left in the tank for sure. So I'm not overly concerned about the backfield at this point. Now, if Pacheco starts the season and he's not as effective as he was a year ago, then I think we can start to have a little bit more concern.
I think it's replaceable, but I also think it's a thing that is like icing on the cake, makes you imagine if the Chiefs didn't have Pacheco last year, right? Like imagine if they didn't have his ability to move the sticks late in games. For the way that the Chiefs play and the way that they're the best, that ball control allowance late is pretty critical. And it just adds so much to the team when they can do that late in a game. I love Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon is hurt a lot. Last year was a revelation only because he stayed healthy finally, right? That's why last year he's always been really good everywhere he's been. He just is hurt all the time. Isaiah Pacheco, I think one of the reasons that he was in the 7th round, and I don't just pull this out of my hat. I've heard scouts say this about him, is it was like, how did he fall? It's because his health is going to be a problem with the way that he runs. Like he's not built like Derrick Henry. He just runs like Derrick Henry sometimes. And, that violent running style doesn't have a long shelf life in the NFL, which is probably why he slipped. And so if he's already dealing with injuries that came because of last year, right? Like these injuries, he played through them, but that means they happened. And if they continue to happen, they're going to, the Chiefs, I mean, I don't know what else is on the depth chart. Am I missing somebody besides those 3? I know they're not going to roll into the season with just 3 running backs.
No, I know. Yeah, I've read a couple of articles that they've got some undrafted guys that, they invited to OTAs and mini camps and things like that. And I know as you get through the off season, they'll solidify a little bit more, who those other guys are. I know that I don't remember their names. I know there's a couple of them that they invited. So we'll see if those are, legitimate options at running back. Or, one other thing to keep in mind too, is that there's nothing saying that, you get into, off season and preseason, all that. Nothing saying that Brett Veach couldn't go out and sign a free agent running back if you absolutely needed to, as you get a little bit closer to the season. And you have to evaluate the depth chart and all of that and how Pacheco is coming back from injury. There's nothing saying that they couldn't go and sign somebody if they needed to.
And there's going to be guys available too, by the way. Like there will be players available. I'm going to give you a name here that to just like, let's just begin to consider and think about it. The Titans are going to suck this year, probably. Derrick Henry, maybe, and we know they've been shopping him around. What if there was some scenario, and I know he's got money, and I don't know how you'd navigate that. Like, that's what I begin to wonder. Like, what if there's one of these teams that's not very good, and, I don't know what the Titans have asked for a guy like Derrick Henry. We know that the Chargers have shopped around Austin Eckler. Like, some really good running backs have been on the block. Maybe that's the approach for the Chiefs. If the Titans are really bad out of the gates, remember Christian McCaffrey last year. Now, the Chiefs aren't going to go give up what the Niners gave up for Christian McCaffrey, nor should they. But if there's a guy like Derrick Henry, when the Titans aren't going to be any good and they really just kind of need to move on, and Derrick Henry's a little older too, Like, could you imagine going and finding a veteran like that could come help you?
Yeah, I have a feeling the price tag might be a little bit too steep
I don't
for
know.
Kansas
I
City
don't
to
know if
consider
it would
that.
be at his age. I mean, he's
Do you think
29.
I mean, what about, Ezekiel Elliott? I mean, do you think he's gonna
Yep.
be able to
Zeke's
garner
out
a
there right
deal,
now.
somewhere
Zeke
else?
would be
Right, like,
great.
I don't know if there's a team that's gonna be willing to, give, and I don't know what Zeke is looking for, but I don't know if there's gonna be a lot of teams out there that are gonna be willing to give him a multi-year deal with, good amount of money. If it becomes, a situation where the price tag isn't incredibly high, I'd be okay with that. I would even maybe
I
go
would
for
too.
that over giving
Oh, I
up
would.
what you would have to give up to get Derrick
Absolutely.
Henry.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Derrick Henry, he's older than Christian McCaffrey in his, if the team can eat some of the money they're dealing with this year, they would like it. I think it'd be like a third, maybe a fourth round pick. But Zeke, if he comes for free 99, heck yeah. Because look, Zeke is lost a step. There's no doubt about it. The one thing
Yeah.
though, that if you watch a lot of Zeke, and I do, one of his greatest attributes over his career is always gaining at least 2 or 3 yards, right? And it's just that fall forward effect. The guy never goes backwards. He's always getting that, at least a couple, and that's been valuable. And for the Chiefs, honestly, like that's what they need anyway, and that's what it is. Like I just envision and Pacheco's great at this. So I hope Pacheco's healthy and he's fine. And I'm not saying it's not Pacheco. I'm just worried about his health. Late in the game, like if I'm thinking about the Chiefs in the postseason, what do they need their running back to do? 2 things: block, which Zeke does very well, and pick up a first down on 3rd and 1, on 3rd and 2, which is about all Zeke does well, right? He's not explosive anymore, but he still does that. And so that's an interesting name, and one I certainly thought of when I saw this was like, I wonder if they could. And there's no rush to do that either. That's the other thing. Like there's no rush to go make that signing, but you can have the conversation now with Zeke and just say, hey man, if you're not doing anything and we need a guy, you want to come try to win a Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot of players that would be interested in something like that. So that's interesting. But a lot of Chiefs news, sort of just like word vomit from Andy Reid and all these updates, and we're just like, whoa, we've got all these angles to try and hang on a minute. So we'll dig into that as we make our way through here toward OTAs and all that stuff. We'll come back. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs. We've got a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. We've got some bets for the day and that kind of adventure to talk about with you as well. Some giveaways. In fact, let's hit our first giveaway, Jad, and we'll do Fast X. It's the latest Fast and Furious movie hitting theaters next week. We've got pairs of tickets to a special Thursday preview at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square at 7 o'clock. Let's give away a pair of tickets right now to our first caller at 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. Sports Daily coming right back. NBA playoffs next.
The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
And then when will you give a foul? Green throws it away. Green got up in the air and throws it into the hands of Davis. It's a jump ball.
Play we've run quite a bit before. It's got multiple options in it, so there's 3 or 4 different options. We had time for a quick 2. We're down 3, but 15 seconds, and we had another timeout left in our pockets. So play that where you can get a quick 2 or maybe a 3 if it's open. We just didn't execute. They played good defense too.
Yeah, I don't know, Steve. I didn't like that play at all. I don't like the ball in the hands of Draymond Green trying to dribble around and make a big pass in a big moment. And by the way, let's stop with we had 15 seconds. Let's score 2 and make them shoot free throws. Okay, this is Splash Brothers. You're the Golden State Warriors. Not only do you have the Splash Brothers, you got Poole, you got Wiggins. Take a 3. Take a 3 and don't put the ball in the hands of your power forward. or small for whatever position you want to define Draymond Green as a guy who's going to like slash the lane and then dribble in and make a crazy pass. No, give the ball to Steph. Don't give it to Clay because he looked real bad late in that game. But give it to Steph, give it to Wiggins, give it to Poole again. Let somebody jack up a three and then crash the boards. Come on now, Steve. Steve Kerr's a great coach. I did not like that call. And I did not like the call on Jordan Poole taking a 30-foot three in game one either. Two big moments late in the Lakers-Warriors, and the Lakers come out on top in both situations, and the Warriors are in big, big, big trouble. Welcome back to Sports Daily, everybody. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Man, what are we doing there? Warriors. Lakers take it last night, 104-101, another good game in that series.
I know you're heartbroken, man. I know that you've got your money on the Warriors to go all the way. I'm telling you right now, I'm here to tell you the dynasty is done. The dynasty is over with. Like, the window has closed.
They won the title last year.
It's done. I mean, they're down 3-1 against the Lakers, and they had chances to win at least last night, and had a chance to at least push it to overtime in game one. The late game execution, terrible. That's unlike what we've seen from Steve Kerr teams in the past. They're done. They're not coming back from 3-1. And then I just don't think that we're going to see them in this position again.
Tommy, don't be a coroner. Don't go get your corner slice. You called the Suns dead before the weekend. On Friday, you were on this show calling them dead. Yes, you did. You said they're dead. The Denver, you did too. Jad, pull it up. Tommy called them dead.
I didn't say that. I didn't say they were dead. I just said I would take Denver on a money line. I didn't say they were dead. So I wasn't misremembering. I wasn't saying that they were completely out of it. I'm just saying I looked Denver game 3, which clearly didn't happen, and neither did game 4. But I'll tell you right now, based on the way the Warriors have executed late in the game, throughout the course of this series, they're not coming back from 3-1. Not going to happen.
It doesn't happen very often, and I don't think they are either. The only thing that makes me pause is the fact that the two of the losses, right, have been on last-second possessions. So, right, if those go the other way, which they can, and they're up 3-1 or tied 2-2, I don't think we would call them dead, and it's that same team that's taking the court. Yes, they have to win 3 in a row. I mean, that's the elephant in the room, and you got to do that when LeBron James is on the other side. Like, you've got to try and do that without Anthony Davis taking over a game like he did in game 1. He was really good last night again, 23 and 15. That's going to be good enough, probably. But, in both of those games, he was really good. It was tight, right? And so, I don't think they're going to win, but I'm not calling them dead yet. This is still Steph
Here's what
Curry.
I think is going to happen. I'll telegraph what's going to happen for you, because we've seen the Warriors do this throughout the course of the playoffs. When they get their backs up against the wall, Steph Curry goes out and, puts up 50 points or whatever. So I wouldn't be shocked to see the Warriors win game 5 because their backs are up against the wall. But I think the Lakers will take probably game 6, and it'll be a 4-2 series win for the Lakers. That's kind of what I see and how I see the way this thing playing out.
Well, you go home for that game 5, which is one thing, one part of it. That's tomorrow night. And then you've got to come back to LA, right? And then you would get a potential game 7 at home. So, the problem for the Warriors is they had that chance to get the road win and get home court back last night, and they let it slip through their fingers. Now you have to go still win one on the road if you want to win this series. That's the daunting part of it. Can you win game 6 in LA, right? Because could they win game 5 and game 7 at home? Of course they can. Can they win game 6 in LA? They had their chance to get the road win last night where they wouldn't have had to do that. That's what makes it a little daunting to me. But yeah, I mean, it really does become like, and it's this way on both sides, right? You've got the Splash Brothers and how much greatness is left in their tank. And then you've got LeBron and Anthony Davis and how much is left in their tank. And we haven't even talked about the guy who was the reason the Lakers won the game.
Lonnie Walker was incredible.
Lonnie Walker.
Lonnie Walker. Freaking Walker was incredible. 6 of 9 shooting. This was a guy that started the year in the starting rotation for the Lakers, fell all the way down. I don't think he played in game 1. Came in game 2.
Man, that was emotional afterward too.
Played in game 3 a little bit more. Came off the bench again in game 4 and just looked awesome. Shot the ball lights out. Really happy for that dude.
Me too. Austin Reeves was good too, by the way. Shocker fan. So you've had back-to-back nights now. You had the Landry Shamet game, and then Austin Reeves goes for 21. It's interesting with the Lakers. That was a really cool moment for Lonnie Walker, and you feel good for him. And they have Austin Reeves, who I know it was brief, but he still played for the Shockers. I am so intrigued by old guys late in their career. So like Anthony Davis and LeBron James both fit that mold. And I'm sitting here and I hate the Lakers as much as any team in sports. And so like it's hard because I don't hate this Lakers team like I've hated most Lakers teams my whole life. But I mean, it's a little, it does feel a little different. Like it doesn't make me want to vomit when the Lakers win or potentially win a title anymore, like it did for so many years. And that's not anything against anybody that played for those teams, by the way. Loved that those teams were there. They were great, one of the great villains of all time. But I mean, like Lakers, Yankees, right? For me, it was Niners growing up. Like those are the teams that I just could like. Those were the sworn enemies. And I would like for probably any team remaining to win instead of the Lakers, but the Lakers do have some reasons to not dislike them as much. And seeing Lonnie Walker after that game and how much that meant to the whole team was pretty cool last night. Now it's like how much magic is left on the other side with Golden State and the Splash Brothers. And like, don't you feel like at some point Andrew Wiggins needs to take over a game? Isn't he sort of due for one? Like, where's the Andrew Wiggins game, right? That's what I need.
Yeah, I mean, the shooting for Golden State wasn't great last night. Steph Curry was 12 of 30, shooting under 50%, from the floor. I think
and
that
Clay
Steve Kerr
looked awful late.
Right. He was only 3 of 11 shooting last night. And I think that, Steve Kerr's got to make a decision on whether or not you give Jordan Poole any minutes moving forward, because he's not looked good whatsoever during the course of this series. 0 of 4 off the bench last night in game 4. And then, of course, he took that ill-advised 30-footer in game 1. So I think that you got to make that decision. Like, is it helping or hurting our team to give Jordan Poole even 10 minutes on the court? Because I think last night it hurt them.
One thing that I've taken away from these NBA playoffs, at least what I've watched, and I've watched far more of the West than the East. I've watched very little of the East, in fact, but a lot of the West, is that I don't know what's going to happen on any given night. Like I am so wrong sometimes on these. Now the outcomes can kind of go the way I thought, but as far as like which players are going to be the reasons why, this has been really unpredictable for that. It's been hard to predict like within a game what's going to happen. I mean, you kind of felt like it was going to be an Anthony Davis game last night, right? Like I think everybody, or at least I did. It was like, all right, he's due for one. Like he'll be good in this game. But outside of that, I would have thought, it was kind of a Klay Thompson moment too. I don't know what to expect, which is also a reason I think that I'm not going to put a fork in the Warriors yet. Yeah, it's unlikely. I forget what the record is for 3-1. It's like 213-13 or something like that. I think they threw the grass. So it's not likely, but it is the Warriors. It's an older version of the Warriors, but it's the defending champs. It's the Splash Brothers. It's Draymond Green. It's Wiggins now. Like they still got enough that they could go win 3 in a row against the Lakers, right?
No,
I mean,
come on. No, they don't.
I don't think
they
it's
could win a couple.
Happen.
Don't get me wrong. I think that
if they win a couple, they get game 7 at home.
Yeah, but here's what I told you before. I think they win game 5. I think the Lakers win game 6 at home, and then it's all done. I think that Steph Curry, though, I mean, we'll see him come off of a 12 of 30 shooting performance in game 4, and he'll put up 40 plus points.
Think he'll do it on the road?
I don't know if he'll do it on the road. He'll do it in game 5. I think he'll do it back at home in game 5. I'm not sure he'll do it in game 6.
I know.
So again, I think that the Warriors win game 5, and then the Lakers win game 6, and then we're talking about the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals.
All bets aside, I need that game to go to that series to go to. I love that series so much. So Heat, here they go. They also go up 3-1 over the Knicks. Not terribly surprising. Jalen Brunson was really good. Man, the Mavericks letting Jalen Brunson go nuts. But the Knicks, not enough. The Heat, Jimmy Butler, really good. Playoff Jimmy Butler. No surprises there. It's Jimmy Butler, like Bam Adebayo, and a bunch of guys you've really never heard of. Oh, and by the way, Kevin Love plays for them. It's crazy. Their roster is just
How
wild.
old is Kevin Love? He's like 42
Kyle
years
Lowry
old.
is still on that team. Kevin Love, I don't know. He's 34 years old. Feels like he's been in the league for 25 years. But yeah, the Heat, man, like the Heat are so interesting because they've done this before. They made the dadgum finals that year where it's like, who are these guys?
They're an 8 seed and they're 1 game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. It's insane.
And Jimmy Butler is the least talked about absolute superstar in the NBA. It's wild. They get the win. They're going to win that series. That one, the Knicks ain't winning 3 in a row. That one, no. I'll put a fork in. I'm not putting a fork in the Warriors yet, selfishly, because I still have a bet on them. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. If you want to jump in, congratulations to Lyle, who will be seeing Fast X on Us. By the way, you can enter for your chance to win a trip to see Guns N' Roses at a U.S. stop of your choice on their 2023 World Tour, including round-trip airfare, a 2-night hotel stay, a pair of tickets, and a $200 gift card. Just go to kfhradio.com, enter the chance to win this national contest. Get tickets now at livenation.com. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Take playoff action to the next level with BetMGM, authorized gaming partner of the NBA. Sign up now and instantly receive $100 in bonus bets when you place a $10 moneyline wager on any NBA team with bonus code Jacob100. Enjoy the NBA playoffs like never before with BetMGM's daily promotions, boosted odds specials, and parlay selection features at your fingertips for every game. Download the app today and sign up with bonus code Jacob100 to instantly get $100 in bonus bets. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly and offer resources to help you make appropriate choices. BetMGM.com for T's and C's. 21 plus to wager. Kansas only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Welcome back to Sports Daily. Welcome you if you are listening to us on KFH. If you're watching us on our video stream, which you can find on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Glad to be here with you. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. We've got a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction coming up in our second hour. Racing fans will be interested in that one. We'll bring in Paul Savage for that induction. Tommy, quickly here, BetMGM, we just were mentioning it, bets today. So I've got on my BetMGM, I had a Major League Baseball parlay booster that I needed to use. So I've got that set. I'm going to take the Guardians, Shane Bieber's on the mound, the Padres over the Twins, and then the Astros and the Angels. I'm taking the Angels with Shohei Ohtani on the mound against the Astros. Those three together with the booster, I got it at plus 527. $25 pays 156. That's my Major League Baseball parlay bet. And I also there's a Lions boost, which they're regular daily boosters. I actually like this one today. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray each to go for 25 tonight and the Nuggets to win. Those are the two bets I have over at BetMGM.
My favorite bet of the entire day in Major League Baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Baltimore Orioles. The total is 8. I'm looking at the over 8. I mean, Tampa Bay can score runs in droves. Baltimore has hit the ball really well this season. Also, I know that Zach Eflin is pitching for the Rays. He's a really good pitcher, 4-0 with a 2.25 ERA. That being said, though, I like both offenses, so I like the over on the total of 8 in the Rays and Orioles game tonight.
Nice. Can I tell you one other thing? This is funny. So I told you my parents were here and, Dad was, we used to go to Vegas and we'd put a futures bet on the Rangers to win the World Series. Well, he came and he was like, what's that at? And I was like, 50-1. So we've got two $200 bets on the Rangers. We placed one and then one for the kids, one for me, one for the kids. And everyone made fun of me, but hey, they're offering me $106 cash out, Tommy, on my $100 bet there. 106. Things are going my way.
There. Yeah. Are you going to cash out? You going to take that $6 and walk away?
Of all the things that you know about me, what do you think the answer to that question is?
You're going to let it ride. Let it ride the entire way.
Let it ride. There is another big story that we're going to get into in the second hour here, Sports Daily on a Tuesday, and it's Bob Huggins. We'll sort of set the table and we'll get into it later in hour number 2 after we have our Hall of Fame induction. But Bob Huggins, if you missed it yesterday, went on a radio station and for God knows what reason decided to go nuclear with some brutal slurs regarding the gay community when he was talking about Xavier. The F word when referring to a gay person is what he used twice. And I just am like, you listen to it, it's like watching a train wreck. You're like, what is happening right now? Huggins has apologized, didn't make any excuses, anything like that. He apologized about like you'd assume Bob Huggins would apologize, which is, I take absolute full responsibility and will live with whatever consequences come, which West Virginia is evaluating right now. Tommy, the question we'll ask now that we'll answer later is Bob Huggins going to coach again? And I don't know.
We'll talk about it. It's shocking. Absolutely shocking.
That was a story yesterday that Nobody, like, we're sitting there and we're like, wait, he did what? And then we listen to the audio and we're like, what is happening right now? How is this even possible? We'll talk about it hour number 2. Mike Peters, racing legend here in the state of Kansas, going to get inducted into the into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame, a la Warren Hardy receiving that for him. Paul Savage will come in. We'll have that on Sports Daily next.
Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 on Sports Daily. You've got Albracht, you've got Castor, and you've got Paul Savage here in hour number 2. And that means as we make our way through the spring here, we continue our inductions into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Today, we hit the racing world. Welcome back, everybody. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline if you want to get that ready. Welcome to those watching us on a video stream right now. Paul Mike Peters is our induction today. I'll let you set that up and get things started for us.
Well, thank you, Jad. Hello, Tommy. It's good to see you again. It's always nice to have the whole band together. And I just want everybody to understand, and I know Jad understands, Tommy, Jacob, you also understand how rich a history which Wichita and the state of Kansas have in auto racing. It's amazing. It is just amazing. And today we're going to introduce somebody really special. Royalty is how I would term him, Mike Peters. Mike was one of the most successful auto racers to ever race in the city of Wichita. And he raced for, get this, 60-plus years. And he started at the age of 5 racing quarter midgets. Don't you just love that? Mike won 5 Hutchinson National Championships, 5 State Fair Speedway Championships, and the NCRA Dirt Track and the NCRA Sprint Car Championships along the way. And he's been inducted into the High Banks Hall of Fame and the 81 Speedway Hall of Fame. Mike unfortunately passed away in 2018. So accepting for Mike and Mike's family is our good friend, a Wichita Sports Hall of Famer in his own right, Warren Hardy. Warren, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming in and helping us honor Mike Peters.
Well, Paul Savage, I want to thank you for everything you do for the racing community, and thank Jacob and Tommy for allowing us to talk a little bit about auto racing on Sports Daily.
Well, one of the things that one would say with regards to Mike Peters is that he was a winner. And talk a little about the mindset of this man, because you read about him, you study this guy. The guy had a mindset that was as competitive as maybe anybody in the history of auto racing in the state of Kansas.
You're right, Paul. You know, Mike started racing, as you said, at age 5 with his dad. His dad would build they were quarter midgets. And to preface everything before we get too far into it, for the listening audience that may not be real familiar with auto racing and what we're talking about, we're gonna use Mike Peters as an analogy with open wheel racing. And open wheel racing it covers a vast number of names of race cars, such as modifieds, super modifieds, midgets, quarter midgets, sprint cars. Open wheel racing, for listeners that don't understand dirt track racing, a good analogy I like to use is open wheel cars to dirt are what Indianapolis 500 cars are to asphalt. They're open wheel. So if you picture an Indy 500 car, it's an open wheel car sitting in a shell where the driver sits. Open wheel cars to dirt are the same thing. The driver sits in there, he straddles the drive shaft, and these cars, much like the Indy cars, if you want to go fast, you can spend as much money as you can to go as fast as you can. And that's one of the lure of these type of race cars that Mike Peters drove for, like you said, over 6 decades.
Warren, one of the things that I noticed about Mike Peters as I was reading about him and, looking at what he's done, what he did throughout the course of his career, was just how popular he was with fans, other fellow drivers, how good of a guy he was. I read that he would oftentimes give away memorabilia and trophies and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about his personality and just how he embraced his fans?
He did. Yeah, you're exactly right. Mike used to win trophies, and he'd walk up into the grandstands, and he'd have all the little kids come down towards the pit gate, and he'd pick one out and hand it to them. Boy, you should see the smile on those kids' faces when they did that, because that was just Mike Peters. As the voice of 81 Speedway for 43 years, I had an opportunity many, many times to interview Mike Peters, and Mike was reluctant. He didn't walk away from an interview except for one time. One time, the NCRA Racing Series was at Manzanita Speedway in Phoenix, Arizona, and the infield announcer, I was doing the play-by-play upstairs, their infield announcer from Manzanita asked Mike a question, and I didn't catch what he asked him, but Mike looked at him and walked away and never said a word. And I don't know what the announcer, I think he sent it back up to me and commented something about, must have asked him the wrong thing. But Mike, he didn't like to be interviewed. He didn't like to be the center of attention, but he never walked away from it. If you were to ask him a question, he didn't give you a big, long answer. He answered your question that you asked. So if it's a stupid question, I guess he walks away. But that was just Mike Peters. He was that way. He'd do his best to answer what you asked him, but he didn't elaborate on it. And he loved kids when they'd come down to the pit area after the races. There's a metamorphosis that I've always said that happens when these drivers put on a fire suit and a helmet. They become somebody that we are not, we being people buying a ticket in the grandstands or whoever it is standing there watching them. After the races, the metamorphosis comes off and they're one of us again, and they're approachable. And Mike loved to have kids come down into the pit area. He always had the classic cards that he would autograph with the picture of him and the car that he was driving at that time on it, and just loved to visit with them. If he had a sponsor that had something that the kids would enjoy, he was more than happy to give those away. That was just a Mike Peters, but he was a fierce competitor. The guy hated to lose. He had a great rivalry with another guy here from Kansas, Gary Lee Meyer. They called him the Quick Draw Gary Lee Meyer out of Dodge City, Kansas. And I'll tell you a quick story about that I remember. I'll never forget. We're at the Kansas State Fairgrounds on that famed half-mile oval over there at Hutchinson. And it's the feature event of the sprint cars. Mike Peters and Gary Lee Meyer on the front row, 1 and 2, right there. And they're leading 24 cars around this half-mile oval to start the race. Well, the two of them know each other well enough that they're jacking with each other on the starts. We don't get a start the first time, don't get a start the second time. They come into turn 4 and they're twisted up again. We don't get a start on the third. Fourth time, we don't get a start for the race. The promoter of the event and the president of the National Championship Racing Association, C. Ray Hall, stops the field. Now, these guys don't have starters in these cars, so you got to push start every one of them again. He stops the field, walks right out there, sticks his head inside of Mike Peters' sprint car and looks at Gary Lee Meyer and does the same thing, says, okay, guys, you get one more chance. If you don't get it right this time, you go to the rear. And this is one of the most prestigious races in the Midwest area, the Hutchinson Grand Nationals. So we get the cars all going again and go down the back straightaway, and you can see Mike and Gary kind of moving each other around on the front row. Just, you don't touch because these are open wheel cars. If you get rubber on rubber, things go out of control and just bounce all over the place. We get into turn 4, and on the 5th restart, sure enough, Mike and Gary get together and come tumbling down the front straightaway. Both cars are demolished. They aren't even in the race. We get the race, and it goes nonstop green, white checkered. But that's just the kind of guy Mike was. He's a gentle giant, but when the metamorphosis takes place and he puts the fire suit on and the helmet, the guy thinks of one thing, and that's, I'm going to be there first.
Wow.
Mike Peters being inducted into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Always good to hear from Warren Hardy, who is accepting in honor of him. And Warren, you know, over the years when we've been together, how much, right, I know about auto racing. And it's, well, it's not much, but
do you still have that Camry you drive?
Kia, and yes, I do. My 4-cylinder Kia will get me where I need to be and as quick as I need to be there. You're dang right,
baby.
But one
you
thing,
don't move
one thing
over in it, do you, Jacob?
No, absolutely not. No, we're listen, it's a dad wagon. I can load up those kids and get where it's perfect. I'm gonna actually quick aside, Warren, because you'll appreciate this. My son, my 3-year-old son, almost 4, gets on to me and sometimes will not drive with me, but drive with his mom because she drives like a race car driver and I don't. And that's a real kick in the pants when you hear that. But that happens.
I remember we used to do the racing deal there at Sports Daily, and it was always fun to see you sitting in the room because you're just looking over there like, well, those guys got a third eye. What the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, I don't. But we hung tight. We'd get in there. I actually used to call somebody. I never told y'all that, but to help me with my picks before I'd make them, I would call a guy I knew that knew a little bit about auto racing. But one thing, auto racing aside, when I saw Paul's notes on Mike Peters, what jumped out to me was 60 years of racing, and I think this goes for all sports. We're seeing 2 of the all-time greats right now in a series in the NBA playoffs. We've seen Tom Brady succeed at an older age, and something that jumps out in 60 years, anything. And I think it probably lends itself to the competitive spirit of Mike, right? Like, what do you have to have in the tank in auto racing to be able to do it for that long?
Well, and Jacob, you're exactly right. Over 6 decades of racing dirt. Now we're talking cars that do 120 miles an hour into turn number 1 and 3 on a 3/8 oval. So your reaction time has got to be there. That's what kills a lot. That's what takes a lot of drivers out of this sport that Mike was in. Is as you age, the reaction time isn't there. The eyes aren't there anymore. And I remember a great ambassador of dirt track auto racing in the open wheel division, Leland McSpadden out of Tempe, Arizona. He was called the Tempe Tornado, much like Mike was called the Iron Man and the Jayhawker. But he said, Hardy, if auto racing was safe, everybody would be doing it. Much why Jacob Albracht, folks, drives a Kia. So in the loop of that, Mike was, the amazing thing about that is 6 decades of driving a car that now is primarily driven by kids coming out of go-karts that are 13 years old, 23, 30 is considered your way out because you've done it. You know what it's like to crash these things. They don't spin out normally. When you get in a crash in an open wheel car, it usually isn't just a spin around or something like that. You go tumbling, and the car can go end over end. It can tumble. It goes up in the air and comes out. So the wear and tear on the body in these cars is something. And then when you've got that kind of centrifugal force doing 120 miles an hour into turns 1 and 3 on dirt for 50 laps or 25 laps, whatever the championship event might be, that has an effect on the body as well. And to do it as long as Mike Peters did it, and to be competitive in doing it like Mike Peters did it, speaks to what kind of driver and what kind of shape Mike Peters was in.
Wonderful answer. And boy, I'll tell you what, that's amazing. 60 years of doing anything is amazing to me. One last question, and then we're going to do the official induction of Mike Peters into the Hall of Fame. But this is a question over, and I think Mike would agree. He would say, Savage, take a moment and allow Hardy to give a little advertisement, a little bit of knowledge to people. Where is racing as we speak in the state of Kansas today, in the city of Wichita? Where is racing, auto racing at this point in Kansas right now, Warren?
Wow, that's a great question, Paul. It's as long as it's the old adage, as long as they build 2 cars, they're both going to want to go faster than the other one. And auto racing is an expensive sport. I don't care if you do it in the division of the open wheels, where you can spend as much money as you want to spend to go as fast as you can go, or if it's in the beginner divisions with the 4-cylinder cars. The racing is not a cheap sport, and it's not something that everybody understands. It looks like you could go out there and go in a circle and make it pretty easy, but to make these things go left in competition is really something that if you haven't had the opportunity, grab the family up. 81 Speedway races every Saturday night. There's other local area racetracks that you can attend. And it's a tough business right now because it's all entertainment. And that entertainment dollar can constantly get stretched and stretched and stretched. And, you know, these guys are now spending more and more money in auto racing because money is speed. So you've got to pay them more to come out and play at your racetrack or facility, whatever. And to pay them more, somebody else has to pay more to watch them. So the attendance is maintaining to support local dirt track racing here in Wichita. Now, in Wichita, we have the benefit of a population. You go to other places where Mike Peters was, as you said, inducted into the Belleville Midget Hall of Fame in the High Banks. Belleville, Kansas, I don't believe is much but more on the map other than population. I don't know if they even list it. But for a track like that to succeed, things really have to go well. You got to look at weather. You've got to look at how far people drive away from this and that. So auto racing right now is at a competitive level with everything else that's demanding the entertainment dollar. And it's exciting. It's exciting, but you have to give it a chance. It's like that big ride up at Worlds of Fun in Kansas City. That first drop, wow. Do I want to take that? Do I want to do? But you've got to give it a chance to see what it's like, much like auto racing. It's strong, it's supportive, and we're happy to be able to be here and represent the Peters family and Mike Peters. And what a great induction, Paul, this one was.
Well, I appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you. Could not do the justice that auto racing demands without you and C. Ray Hall and a couple of the guys. Thank you so much for all of your help, for all your guidance in making sure we're treating them right, treating these racers the proper way. So with that being said, I'm going to take this moment and we're officially going to induct Mike Peters into the Hall of Fame. And at this time, we are officially inducting Mike Peters into the Hall of Fame. He has been nominated and elected into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. And from this moment on, he is inducted with all the full rights and all the pageantry that goes along with being a Wichita Sports Hall of Famer. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to his family. It's a wonderful thing, and we're so grateful. And by the way, we always talk about this. Thursday of this week, we're inducting Adrian Griffin into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. We've always talked about racing being on the same foot of other sports, and I think it's poetic that a huge name in the world of professional and college basketball like Adrian Griffin is going into the Hall of Fame in the same week as Mike Peters, an auto racer in Kansas. I think that's wonderful. And again, congratulations to the family for Mike Peters. He is now an inductee into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Warren, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for helping the Peters family out, and thank you for helping Sports Daily out. We appreciate it.
Always great to talk to you guys, and really appreciate you having me on, fellas.
Warren Hardy, there he goes. We're going to get Warren out on the golf course at some point here soon this summer. We'll do that. Warren, always appreciate it. Good to talk to you. Let's take a quick break. On the way out, speaking of auto racing, quite fitting, Fast X. They race a lot of cars, drive real fast, blow things up. The latest Fast and Furious movie hits theaters next week. We got a pair of tickets to a special Thursday preview at Boulevard Theaters in Town West, 7 o'clock. Jad will get us a winner on the IHOP hotline. First caller to 869-1240. We'll come back. We're going to get into the Bob Huggins story. Sidney McKinney, the first pick in a pro softball league. We'll get into that a little bit as well as we make our way through hour number 2 of a Tuesday edition of Sports Daily. All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily. It's Jake Albracht, Tommy Castor, and Paul Savage here in hour number 2 of the show. Congratulations to Chris, the most recent winner of our Fast X tickets. Thanks to Warren Hardy for coming in to accept that induction to the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame for racing legend Mike Peters. All right, the story we sort of teased at the end of hour number 1 that we'll get into now. Bob Huggins goes on a Cincinnati radio show and for whatever reason just goes off a cliff in saying things that are wildly inappropriate, certainly wildly inappropriate to say out in, on public airwaves, but uses a gay slur, the one that starts with F, not once, but twice. I don't understand how this even happens. I don't even understand how this happens. But Bob Huggins has apologized, accepts full responsibility, not making any excuses, says he'll accept whatever punishment West Virginia is evaluating. I don't know if this is the end of Bob Huggins, but I think there's a chance that it is, Tommy. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, and I'm not even sure, and I don't know enough about Bob Huggins and the way he, treats people, or if he has any history with this kind of stuff. Like, I don't have a hot take today right now on whether I think he should coach again. I think the possibility exists that he might not, which is wild to consider.
The possibility absolutely exists because there's a precedence for this. I mean, a couple of years ago, the Cincinnati Reds broadcaster, Tom Brenneman, said the exact same word on a hot mic coming out of a commercial break. By the way, he was at Kauffman Stadium. The Reds were playing the Royals at that time, but said the exact same word on a hot mic and lost his job. Done. He left that game midway through the game and was never heard again. So there's a precedence for this sort of thing to happen where somebody loses their job based on that word that was being used. And so, again, I don't know if that's ultimately going to be the decision that West Virginia makes with Bob Huggins. If it is, it's a shame because Bob Huggins, has been coaching there for a long time. It's his alma mater. He's had a lot of success there. He's one of the elder statesmen of college basketball. It's a shame, but if that ends up happening, Huggins has nobody to blame but himself.
And he won't blame anybody but himself. I mean, he's already made that abundantly clear, Paul, which doesn't surprise us, right? That he would take accountability here. It's just so strange because he's one of the more affable, characters in college basketball. As gruff and grumpy as he is perceived to be, generally speaking, it feels like among peers and players, he's very well liked. And, that's what makes, I think, this so disappointing, Paul, is to see something like this happen. And, over however many years of becoming the Huggy Bear, this now lingers. And that's hard. I mean, it's hard to see that kind of thing happen to a guy that most people really like in the game of college basketball.
Well, I hate to be the jaded one in this trio that we have on air right at this moment. I don't want to be the one that's jaded, but come on, money's going to have something to do with this. How much money will, because of cause in his contract? Tommy, you're familiar with athletic coaching contracts. I know you are, that there are certain things that a coach can do and things that would allow an organization to walk away from a contract, not pay certain amounts of contract. I really think this will probably boil down to what's it going to cost us if we want to replace Huggy? What's it going to cost us?
He's
I guarantee you they'll, I guarantee you. Yeah, it's for cause. There's a clause in his contract. I'm sure that's a morality clause or whatever you want to call it, where if the university wants to fire him, they will be able to make a claim that it's for cause and they won't have to pay him a dime.
Well, if that's the case,
that's not the issue, Paul, because I think that yes, they can fire him for cause. But I don't. It's really a question of do they want to, and that's what makes it hard. Money's not going to be the reason they do or don't, because I think they can. It's more of there has not been a more synonymous name just that rolls off the top of my head for that university than Bob Huggins is. And that's what makes it, a difficult decision. And look, when we talk about the difficulties of this decision, don't misread what we're talking about. There's nobody in this conversation that thinks there's any place or time for something like Bob Huggins and what he did. It's just the reaction to it is so stunning because it just like all I can keep thinking, Paul, is like this. Where did this come from, and why did this happen? Like, how could this even happen?
I don't know how this happens in today's world. Obviously, he regrets it. I mean,
Sure.
He's a human being. Things happen, and I hate to say that he did it on, I don't understand how it happened either. And obviously you, Tommy, and I, we're on the radio all the time. We always try to make sure we don't do these kind of things, but we see good people, things slip out. I don't know how it happens, but it does happen. But he has brought a lot to West Virginia, and you had mentioned that he's probably the highest viewed person, probably the most well-known West Virginian that anybody knows of or has, a relation with West Virginia University. I'd say it's Jerry West, but that's just me. And a lot of people are probably going, who's Jerry West? Okay. All right. I get it. Okay. I'm with you. It's okay. But there's no winners in this thing. Huggins isn't a winner. West Virginia is put in a horrible spot. The basketball program is put in a horrible spot. There are no winners. And I don't know. I would think that I would take another look at it if I was a university. A good apology is what is called for, as long as the apology is sincere. And people say, well, how do you know if it's sincere? I can tell. I'm sorry, guys. I'm able to tell most of the time when an apology is sincere. I see it. I know it when I see it. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And if this I'm just saying,
Bob Huggins doesn't need to apologize to us.
No,
no, I'm not. Okay. I'm not gay. Bob Huggins needs to apologize to the gay community. Okay, right? Like, don't apologize to me.
He also needs to apologize to Xavier, I would think. I mean, they were the target, of the entire.
I think, I think that part of it is the difficulty, right? He's trying to rib and have fun at Xavier's expense, right? A rival school and all that stuff. But like, and we get into these situations where people say things that they shouldn't. Like, I don't need the apology from Bob Huggins. I don't like that he said it, but it doesn't affect me directly. And, like, don't apologize to me. Go find that community that you just set back a few steps and go find them and have a conversation with the gay community about it. And, see and go learn something. And, that's what's hard about it too, is like, you put out a public apology and you do all that stuff. And I don't think that's just window dressing from Bob Huggins. I think he probably fully understands what he did and regrets it. But is there sincerity in the apology to the appropriate direction? Right.
It's got to be there.
Don't apologize because you might lose your job. Apologize because you genuinely offended a community that absolutely isn't necessary at all.
Also, I want to point out, before I go any further on this, that the words themselves are horrible, abhorrent. All of that, should have never used it. So that's by itself. I want to clarify that before I say this. It's one thing for Bob Huggins to use that kind of language. He shouldn't use it at all, right? But it's one thing for him to use that kind of language in private, when he's not on public airwaves. You have to know better. You are going on the radio. It's being broadcast to the Cincinnati market and then online across the entire world. It's gone viral. Everybody hears it. You have to know better than that, right? Like, if there's locker room talk, if there's like guys getting together, like, it's not appropriate regardless. So again, I want to be very clear on that, but it's one thing to do it behind closed doors where it's never going to get the light of day. Still not good, but that's one thing. Wow. It's another thing entirely to have it broadcast to the masses. And you know what? My thought on this was, that scene, I don't know if either of you guys, I'm sure that Jacob, you have at least seen the movie Anchorman, right? With Will Ferrell. Sure. And, he's on the air and he, reading the teleprompter and he, says whatever. And he comes off like nothing even happened. And then the station manager's like, I have to fire you, and he's like, I don't know. What did I say? I had no idea. I think that's what Bob Huggins probably got off the air. Probably didn't even think he said anything wrong. I probably got off the air like, I was making a joke. Probably didn't even realize he did anything wrong.
Yeah. And that's where it's got to be a learning moment. Look,
there's got to be education there.
I have a gay family member. I'm very, defensive in that regard. But like, Bob Huggins is an old guy who was trying to make a joke. And I also, have an appreciation for really crass comedians. So, the setting and that word needs to go, right? Because you can ask somebody that it offends why it needs to go, and they'll tell you, and it just needs to go. But Bob Huggins, like, I don't even care if he coaches another basketball game. Go have a learning moment in life, even if it comes this late, of why that's not cool. Like, why does that, negatively impact so many people for somebody with your platform, especially, right? Like, what that does for some people is validate a feeling that doesn't need to exist when they hear it from somebody like Bob Huggins, Paul. Like, when Bob Huggins says something like that, it might validate somebody else to be like, yeah, I knew it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not cool either. So go take it as a learning moment. Like, the basketball is going to sort itself out. I hope for Bob Huggins, he can rebound from this personally and understand, like, why that was really harmful. Like, that's gonna suck,
right,
for a lot of people that he got on public airwaves like that and said that.
Right. And Tommy, just a one-word answer for this question. Will this happen again? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, it will. Tommy's exactly right. As sure as the three of us are sitting here on YouTube right now or Facebook together on the same page, videoing, this is going to happen again, fellas. This will happen again. And it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen after that. It's human nature. We have to deal with it, and we have to get better at it, but it's going to happen again. That doesn't make it any better.
I also think that there is some responsibility here. And I've listened to the clip a couple different times. There's some responsibility, I think, on the shoulders of the hosts of the show, right? Like, I think you and I, Jacob, and I know Paul too, like we take this craft seriously. Like, there's a responsibility here. And, you listen back to that, and Huggins uses those words, and the hosts, I think it was the Bill Cunningham show in Cincinnati, they're laughing. They never call him on it. They never, we don't want, there's some responsibility there. I think that when you are doing this, and I'm not trying to excuse Huggins because he has a responsibility too, but he's not a broadcaster, right? I don't know if he knows what's indecent or not all the way on the air, but the hosts sure do. You and I, the three of us sure do, right? And there's a responsibility there. I would hope that if we were faced with a similar situation or a similar scenario, that we would be responsible broadcasters enough to say,
a tough spot.
You know what I mean? Like, that's difficult, right?
Tommy, you brought
because they clearly revere him, right? Like, they clearly look up to him and appreciate him, and that's like, I'm sure it caught them off guard. Like, why would they expect that to happen? Nobody would.
You have stumbled into the truth on this entire situation. Congratulations. What you have just said is that coaches, in a lot of ways, live two lives. This is what I think you mean. Coaches live two lives. One, in their private, closed moments with their team. And when they're with their team, language is many times different. Their demeanor is many times different. Their attitude towards the physical part of who they are and it can be different. It can be hands-on or there a lot of things go on inside a football or inside a basketball program that are kept behind closed doors. Sometimes, Tommy, and that's what I love about your point here, at least I think it was your point, is that coaches live in two different worlds, don't they? They live in the world where when they're out in public, it's expected to be to be a certain way with a certain respect. When they're behind closed doors, man, anything goes. Anything. Tommy, you've been around enough coaches in the world of hockey to know there's probably coaches, anything goes. Am I right or wrong on that one? I'll bet I'm right. Sure,
absolutely.
I'm right.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then they step from one world to another. And literally sometimes they switch gears in a matter of 5 minutes.
But Huggins has been around long enough that he should know the difference.
Right,
I think that's the biggest thing, right?
That's a good point.
And
that's a good
it comes
point.
back to what happens next. And here I struggle with these all the time. I struggle mightily with the appropriate punishments for these kinds of things because, I'm sure that I do and say things that probably would offend somebody. Like, I'm somewhere like lost in this purgatory of, the instant reaction to things that people say now, which is always, from one side, a decisive, they're done, be done with them, that totally erases like an entire body of work in existence before. Like, I'm in a purgatory. I don't fall on either side. I think sometimes people need to be punished appropriately for the things that they do and say. And sometimes it's like, can we have a learning moment here? Like, can we have a chance for somebody to become a better person because they made a mistake? And so, like, for this one, like, that's why I say, like, I don't have a call on whether his punishment should be to never coach basketball again. I'm not the right person to ask that question.
But you know what? Also, intent plays a really big role in that too.
Absolutely.
And there have been some examples, just recently. I know that you guys have heard about the Oakland Athletics broadcaster,
right?
Was in Kansas City over the weekend. And I'm not sure, and I don't know the guy's heart, but I'm not sure there was a lot of intent there or any intent. I think he just misspoke. I think he just mispronounced the word, that he shouldn't have said. He was suspended, whatever. There was no intent there. There was
he
some
had the
intent with Bob
backing.
Huggins, right?
Oh, there was intent to the joke, and the joke is not cool. But the question for me becomes, is it a joke because you're, of a different generation that makes old crass jokes and you grew
Right.
up on George Carlin like we grew up on Dave Chappelle, and, as long as you're willing to joke about everything, it's just a joke and you're ribbing? Or is there actual malice toward that population? I don't know that about Bob Huggins at all. Have absolutely no idea. But I'm not the person to ask. Let's go ask the community affected. Let's have Bob Huggins directly apologize to them, and we'll probably find out. And if there was malice intended, then he can be done. He doesn't need to be educating young people. But if there wasn't, maybe there's an opportunity for him to grow. I don't know the answer to that because I don't know Bob Huggins personally. But I would imagine if we're guessing at this, the reaction will be pretty swift and pretty harsh. All right, 869-1240. You can always chime in on social media. You can shoot us an email. IHOP hotline open, 869-1240. Again, is the number there. Let's come back. Sydney McKinney was taken as the number one pick in a pro league. We'll sort of explain what that means. It is a big tip of the cap to Sydney McKinney. But we'll explain that, what happened, and get you ready for the rest of the day as Sports Daily comes back on this Tuesday. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily. Let's set ourselves up with one more pair of tickets to Fast X here, which is the latest Fast and Furious movie hitting theaters next week. Pairs of tickets to a special Thursday preview at Boulevard Theaters in Town West. That's next Thursday, 7 o'clock. Fast X, pair of tickets. First caller on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Happy to send you to see that on us here at Sports Daily. While Jad gets that, fellas, let's get into the Sydney McKinney news here real quick. So what happened yesterday was that Sydney McKinney was selected first overall by a pro softball league. It's called Athletes Unlimited. Now, it's not to a specific team, the way I understand it, as much as it is to that league. But, you know, all things considered, basically that league of professionals is calling her the best player in the country, the best senior in the country. And so I don't know, you know, we'll have to see the steps. And I haven't had a chance to talk to the softball program or anything about this yet of what it means, but it means that a group of professionals think that she's awesome. And Tommy, we know that she's awesome, and further solidifies the fact that she's been the best athlete at Wichita State and the most famous and popular since the Ron and Fred days.
Yeah, we're not even talking about a first round pick or a second round pick. We're talking about the number one overall pick is Sydney McKinney. And so that national recognition, I mean, there's a reason that she's getting all the national accolades, right? She's climbing up the top 10 list of all-time hits in softball history in Division I. She's playing for a program that just continues to do what they need to do to be poised to make a deep postseason run. So it's definitely, a great honor for Sydney McKinney. I don't know. I know that she was on our program not that long ago talking about how she'd be returning to Wichita State to be a grad assistant. And so
these are summer leagues.
Okay.
So these are summer leagues, because we'd wondered about that too. And she told us that as we broke that news here on Sports Daily. And so these are summer leagues, and, to continue her degree toward a law degree, which is what she told us she wanted to do, those should be able to happen synonymously.
Yeah.
Here's what Sydney Paul had to say. She tweeted this out. I can't find enough words to express the overwhelming feeling of excitement, joy, and love that I felt when I heard my name called first. Playing professional softball has always been my dream, and it's so surreal that it's now a reality. Athletes Unlimited has already made me feel like a part of their family, and I couldn't be more proud to represent them and Wichita State at the next level. This is crazy. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity. When we talked to her last week too, Paul, she did talk about professional softball and how the sport is growing and how there are a couple of pro leagues now that are growing. I got to tell you, Paul, as somebody who, runs a Hall of Fame and loves all sports the way that you do, I have found more joy in watching highly competitive softball. I don't know that there's a sport for me that has grown on me more than softball has over the last, maybe decade or so. I think the Women's College World Series is every bit as good as the Men's College World Series. I think Wichita State softball right now has been one of the best, if not the best ticket on campus. It's a blast. And she's been the headliner for the Shockers for so long. This is just really awesome to see.
Highly skilled young ladies. That's how I like to refer to them. And you're right. It's amazing. The same thing with volleyball. I mean, sports that maybe you're not quite familiar with. You may not even know, how do you keep score in volleyball? What defines greatness with regards to softball? But you know it when you see it. And this young lady's got it. Now, as far as where she's at with professional softball, she's at the top of the mountain. That's all you can ask. This isn't the NBA. This isn't Major League Baseball. This isn't the NFL draft, but this is the highest level that she can achieve. This is where you strive to be. And she's reached the mountaintop, or at least the potential to go to the mountaintop in her professional sport. And you're right, Jacob. It's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get better. I think you're going to see a lot of young ladies who didn't realize that maybe they had an affinity for softball, finding softball in their life. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing. That's one of those things we all want our young ladies in our lives to understand what it means to compete, what it means to become better, and what it means to become better than you even think you can. Those are life lessons that can be served well through the world of sports. I think it's really cool this young lady has reached where she's reached.
Congrats to Sydney McKinney, the number 1 overall pick to the Athletes Unlimited draft, solidifying her pro career in the summertime as she continues on with the Shockers. Real quick note, Nikola Jokic avoids his suspension. He's fined $25,000, so he'll be playing tonight. No issues there in that one. We'll come back on Sports Daily, tell you what's on the network today. Don't go away. All right. Congratulations to Lyle, Chris, and Corey for those Fast X tickets. We'll do more of that as we make our way through. Appreciate Warren Hardy stepping in to accept the induction for Mike Peters into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. We'll have Adrian Griffin coming for you on Thursday. Excited about that. Lots to get to. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more. For Paul Savage, Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht, and the entire gang. We'll see you tomorrow.